All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you can see my face or hear my voice, you know it is time once again for the worst 120 minutes or so in all of sports. That's right. I'm Mike, and it's time for the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. Instead, we're setting a record. Two consecutive shows.
It's right for 2024, baby.
Hey, listen, I was sore. I haven't had to put this much work in a while. Yeah, I am joined
Absolutely.
as I am every week by my
Uh-oh.
faithful friend in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it, sir?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I am trying to get back on track with my football viewing. It's been pretty limited lately for various reasons. And it's so bad that I didn't realize that the Premier League was actually on today until they were halfway through the games this afternoon. But glad to see that things are getting back and going, getting back in place. And also to see what's happening with this FA Cup, because even though we my team quickly washed out, which was not the best considering that they washed out pretty quickly in both cups this year. But it's always fun, especially when the America's new favorite team, Wrexham, has took quite an L over the weekend. But overall, things are good. Things are good. Things are good in the footballing world. Can't wait to
We
talk
could
to
talk.
Rob too about Bayern and
Yes, yes.
Leverkusen. I want to talk last week. I was upset he couldn't make it on. I mean, I'm glad he's feeling better, but I really wanted to catch up with him last week because
Yeah,
the
we're also going to
Freiburg
hopefully
Hoffenheim game
get
was a great game last week.
yeah, we're going to get Celtic Cam on in a little bit too to talk the Scottish Premier League. I know he's feeling under the weather, but
Hmm.
we got to talk about that with him. Um, we know that amongst other things that are going on right now, it is also the start of the Six Nations. Uh, we'll do a quick bite of that with him, but we're going to do a longer show on Thursday where we can go into depth on the squads. I'm telling you, this one has the potential to be very, very interesting. So you're going to want to
Hmm.
stay tuned. I know that you've been
Yes.
watching the Six Nations. I think it's what Six Nations Full Contact or something like
Yeah, I think
that.
so. I can honestly say it's a little odd because I can't recall watching a sports documentary where I already know what happens on a micro level. Like, when you watch Sunderland Till I Die, you don't remember what happens game by game by game. But for this one, you kind of know. So we'll see. I'd like to review this series. Maybe we can do it maybe middle of the cup. I think if we get a chance to all wrap it up, I'd love to review that series and compare it against some of the other sports-based long form documentaries that we've seen, like a documentary series. I think that'd be fun to
Well,
do.
I mean, it's one thing though. Like, I get what you're saying. Um, because rugby was such a small sample size and the Six Nations was such a small sample size, it was kind of easy to remember. But we've
Hmm.
watched Sunderland till I die. We know when they went up. We know when
Right.
they went
When they
down.
went down, yeah.
We watched Wrexham. Welcome to Wrexham. We
Hmm.
know that the promotion's coming. We know when the FA Cup run is coming. We know
Hmm.
some of the big games exactly what happened.
Right.
Um, Drive to Survive. We know
Hmm.
won what race. We know how the
Yeah,
and
I
so I
need to
guess
watch more of that because actually I only watched one episode. I thought it was fantastic. I just kind of fell out of my rotation. So I need to pick that one back up.
I think you have to get through the first season to enjoy the second season because the
Hmm.
first season they're all focused on like small time drivers and lesser known guys, but then the
Hmm.
second season is when all the big wigs realize, hey, this is a big deal. So all of a sudden, like the
Go look
first
at me. Go
season,
talk to me.
yeah, the first season um, is in the midst of Lewis Hamilton's run of
Hmm.
championships, but he
Hmm.
appears nowhere in the series.
Mm. Yeah.
So it's like this whole thing where they're going through the whole entire F1 series, and there's never a mention of the guy who, actually wins.
Hmm.
But the second season, they're like, you get more access to him. And also, the
Okay.
second season was really funny, was really interesting because you get a backstage look at that was the COVID season.
Right.
And so you kind of get what they're going on and all. So it's interesting when you get that kind of fly on the wall look. I
Yeah.
enjoyed the first series. one of my friends said that they focus a lot on Italy, but that might have been just where they got the most access. Um,
Hmm.
I wonder if uh, Andy Farrell was like, okay, I'll let you all in for the France game because that's the
Hmm.
big game. But after that, hey, look, by the way, guys, we got a tournament to win and a Rugby
Hmm.
World Cup to compete for.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna need to let this go. I don't need you all looking at everything that I do because all I need is for them to get a sight of something that we're doing on just somebody gets a sight of something and they're like, oh, I know what they're doing, even though we know it's going to come out years later.
Right. Hmm. Well, did you see Netflix did a Tour de France series as well?
I did not.
It's called Unchained. It's actually pretty good. I enjoyed that. It's pretty good.
They didn't name it Doped Up.
It's sort of like syringe.
Yes, but yeah, no, it was good soccer weekend.
Hmm.
The FA Cup weekends are always interesting.
Hmm.
Um, I know that it's going to be even tighter next year when we get into the new Champions League format where you're playing
Hmm.
8 games instead of 6 for those teams.
Hmm.
Um, some of these teams are going to have a little bit longer layoff
Hmm.
if they're out of Europe, but nice to see. We had talked to uh, Chelsea Mike, I think last week, and he was going through like just some of the turmoil that's going on at Blackburn, and to see
Hmm.
them come out because I really thought that Wrexham had a shot, and
Hmm.
even more so when they scored that opening goal. But then I guess Blackburn remembered that, hey, we're a league above these guys. Can we play like we are a league above these guys?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the yeah, I mean, we all know Wrexham has a kind of a bloated budget considering they're in League Two, and they'll most likely be in League One next year. But it's wise for for a team that has the top level history that Blackburn does to say, okay, yes, we're having our struggles right now, we're having some internal turmoil, but you're still a minnow. We need to just squash you right now and tell you to go back and focus on your league because that's hey, all the props to Wrexham. All the props, all the respect. Fourth round FA Cup, great. Great job. That's enough. That's
I'm
enough for now.
I'm also assuming that after that first goal, Blackburn gets in the team huddle and they're like, "Look, guys, does anybody really want to end up as a joke on Always Sunny in Philadelphia?"
Exactly. I guess the only positive that can come out that is that there'll be more Americans who've heard of Blackburn right now, as opposed to before, if they happen to lose that game.
People will um, poo-poo Wrexham
Hmm.
and Hollywood FC, but from all I've heard and all I've read, like they have actually been a boon. It's not like they're setting this team up for a fail. They're trying to make it into something that's sustainable for
Hmm.
the community. They're trying to make this a legitimate project. They're not. Yeah, they are playing in League Two with the League One budget, but a lot of the money that they make and that they pump into it is the money that they get from the show, from
Hmm.
sponsorships and things
Hmm.
like that. Now,
Hmm.
do they have an advantage because people want to sponsor? They get the additional exposure as a result of being associated with Wrexham. There's a premium that you pay right now to sponsor Wrexham, but it makes it gives them um, the ability to grow that club. For instance, now when anybody comes in and Wrexham is looking to transfer, there's going to be a premium that they have to pay to get a player. There's
Hmm.
going to be a premium on salaries. Yes, they're
Hmm.
prepared to do that. But at the same time, it's this little tiny corner of post-industrial Wales that
Yeah.
everybody has gone to,
Right.
and all of a sudden it's a tourist destination, and people
Hmm.
are planning like weekend long trips. Their
Hmm.
jerseys sell out in minutes.
Hmm.
They have been able to make basically a cottage industry out of this TV show and their connection with them. And the fans, the community members, they all seem to have really um, embraced these guys. And I think that Reynolds and McElhaney have really embraced it's a really good relationship. It's not one of the
Mm-hmm.
ones where you see a high profile owner buy the club and have like no connection to
Right.
the actual team that they're owning, and they're just trying to look at it like a money making enterprise. Now,
Right.
Ryan Reynolds has said on a couple of occasions, like, this is a for profit venture.
Mm-hmm.
It's a for profit venture. They're not
Mm-hmm.
in it to just waste money, but
Right.
they want to make money the right way.
Right. Right. They want to actually have the turnover. They don't want to be an ownership that buys the team, has a bit of fun with it, gets them up to maybe the championship, and then go, okay, well, we're out of money, and then bolt. And next thing you know,
Yeah, so
the team
they're
gets
trying to
pummeled back down to the
build.
conference.
Yeah, they're going to try and build a sustainable model that, even when they don't own it, and they seem to genuinely care and be fans of the sport. It's like,
Hmm.
you watch the episodes when McElhaney's watching games on his iPad while he's watching at the Eagles game or something like that. They
Hmm.
seem to be
Hmm.
genuinely um, into the sport, and I know they're trained actors. I know that they're award-winning actors and comedians, and
Hmm.
so the one thing they can do is act. But I don't get the feeling that watching them that it is actually an act. I think that's genuinely who they are, and that they're really actually into
Hmm.
this whole process.
Yeah. Yeah, which is positive, which is positive. And um, it's also it's nothing wrong with it. It's fun. And that's
Mhm.
okay. It can just be fun. And they're not Manchester City.
I know, and we know that they're never going to be Manchester
Right.
City.
Right. Wrexham didn't get purchased by a country. They got purchased by two
No, they
actors
got
who
purchased by Deadpool and a character from Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
right.
So,
So just sit back
it's
and enjoy it
easy
while it's here.
to kind of embrace the ownership group there because they're not some corporate behemoth,
Right. Not Amazon or
or
something like that. Yeah.
they're not some like billionaire group Glazers. Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that was a great segue
Mm,
because I'm sorry. I think we got to talk about Marcus Rashford. I mean, and not to bash Marcus Rashford. It's I'm genuinely concerned. Um,
I think there's so much going on there. So, for
yeah,
anybody who's not familiar, Marcus Rashford apparently chartered his own private flight to fly to Belfast from Manchester, which is a little bit over an hour, where he hung out at a nightclub Thursday night into Friday morning, and then flew back Friday morning and called out of training sick.
mhm.
Um, the team has said that whatever discipline has been taken care of, and he's available for selection starting
Yeah,
on.
fine, 2 weeks wages.
Is that what they said?
Yeah, I think it's 2 weeks. I mean, the number is like 625,000 pounds, whatever. But I think like let's not get into his pockets. It's 2 weeks wages. Um, but I think the part that's sticking in my neck about it is not necessarily that he went out and had a little bit too much fun when during like right in the middle of two competitions as far as the season is concerned with the FA Cup and with the Premier League, but it's just another quote unquote disciplinary issue that seems to be springing up at Manchester, and you know it's I refuse to be one of the people that just says, bashes a young millionaire athlete, blah, 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 blah. It's not like Marcus Rashford, this is his first couple of years in the league and he finally got some money. I mean, this guy's been around for quite a long time. And it's, is there something in the water right now? Is there some apathy towards the club from the players? Is Marcus Rashford going through a little bit of a depression right now because his form isn't the best, but is he actually having some mental health challenges right now, which is completely understandable? And I was just it was just a bit surprised. I was like, wow, I don't know. I just found the whole thing just kind of like, not that it was really, really yes, it was in poor taste. It was bad decision making, but it just seems different this time. I don't know. I can't put a finger on it, but it just seems different this time. And it could just simply because of the situation with Jadon Sancho. It's just, what is going on up there? What's going on? Because are they quite quitting? Are they silently rebelling? Like, what's going on?
I think there's a little bit of everything that you're talking about going on.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, it may be a case of a young man who's really had some struggles saying, I'm going to go off and blow off some steam and just get out and do this without the foresight to say, this is not going to end well for me.
Mm-hmm.
We look at Marcus Rashford and we look at the season that he's come off of, and we're like, oh, and then he's coming off of a fantastic season.
Right. 30 goals. He was in great form for about a year and a half. Great form.
Great form for about a year and a half. That also follows him, basically single-handedly taking down Boris Johnson
Mm-hmm.
with the free lunch program and getting an MBE and all the good
Yep.
work that he's been known to do in the community.
Yep.
So it comes off a
Yep.
little bit after all of this like a surprise, because we had the impression that he had become this leader, this
Mm-hmm.
professional.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's not what we have expected from him. And then he goes
Right.
out and does this. Throughout his career, he has typically followed very good runs of form
Mm-hmm.
with not so good runs of form.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that has characterized his career is that he has these patches where he's just bang out of confidence and bang out
Yep.
of form. And unlike a lot of players at the top of their game who we would consider world class, like the top of the top of the top of the top of the top, when he gets into one of these, they tend to last for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
He will not have a month where he doesn't score. He doesn't have a month necessarily where he has a bad season. He will go an entire season, right?
Right.
And that's a knock on him, his game, and his development. Uh, you know, that's kind of the personal end of it. Where I question is, at what point did he think that this was? I get maybe why he did it, but
Yeah, apparently one of his
at
mates
this,
got signed with a club up there or something like that, but
yeah,
still, yeah.
but it's part of the issue is the general feeling around the club right now that there's a lack of accountability.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's no accountability there's no, where's the accountability for Eric Ten Hag to get the results that he needs? Where's the
Mm-hmm.
accountability in the locker room? Who's the leader? Who's the guy that stands up? Who's under Sir Alex Ferguson, this would not have happened.
No. Like
And
Rashford wouldn't have
part of
even thought to do something like that if it was under
that's the
Alex
key,
Ferguson.
right?
It wouldn't have even crossed his mind.
Under Jose Mourinho, under a manager, under a Pep, under something like that, it wouldn't you
Even
wouldn't
David Moyes, they wouldn't have done that under Moyes.
they might have done it late under Moyes,
Yeah, yeah, maybe late. Okay. Maybe in his
but at least
final
to
week, but
start. But
yeah.
it's the idea that he thought that he could just do this
Mm-hmm.
and that there would not be any accountability,
Mm-hmm.
that he would not be held accountable by his teammates
Mm-hmm.
first, right? If somebody did that, if when I was in the army, if we had a private who decided to go out and party and then wasn't available for work the next day,
Mm-hmm.
before it even got to any form of leadership, the team would take care of it.
Right.
All right, you're going to be accountable for us before you are accountable to anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that there's nobody in the locker room, and I think that starts with the choice of captain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Bruno Fernandes, who is now the captain, is necessarily set up in his personality to be the captain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think that he displays those type because he himself is not always accountable.
Right.
All right. And so when you have a captain that is not accountable for his actions, and when I'm talking about this, especially with his activities, how he is on the field, how he
Hmm.
goes about things when things aren't going the right way,
Right.
he tends to look inward and pout and stomp his
Yeah.
feet and get
Hmm.
churlish, right?
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
understand that's emotion. I get that.
Yeah,
But
but he lacks the maturity to control it. I mean, there's a thousand books that you could read about how to control those feelings, and Bruno really struggles with that.
and so, but when you see your captain doing this and he's not held accountable for it, that trickles down.
Yeah.
Who is the leader on that team?
Hmm.
Who is the person who's, there's nobody. We've talked about the failings of leadership at the front office level
Right.
where they seem completely disconnected. And I've talked about the fact that, after Sir Bobby Charlton died, there was nobody outside of Eric Ten Hag from the team who was making statements, right? He was kind of
Hmm.
left on his own
Hmm.
to talk to the media, right? And so you feel like you have at the top, you have absenteeism. So the front
Hmm.
office is not held accountable. The coach was trying to hold everybody accountable last year, but possibly feeling like he wasn't getting the backing of the ownership. And I really do think Eric Ten Hag is trying,
Yeah,
but
I agree. Yeah, I agree
when
completely.
he
Yeah.
doesn't have the backing of the administration,
I was gonna,
he's
but
just a he's
go
just a
ahead.
short ball guy at the front of the room yelling,
Right.
and the players are like, "I don't have to listen to you because you have no gravitas."
Right. I mean, like it or not, Ten Hag, he's in the role of a teacher. He's head of the class, and as we all know, burnout is very real in these types of roles. When you are looked at as a leader to people who are supposed to be accountable to you, and there's several of them, if the number one rate of burnout is due to lack of administrative support. So if Ten Hag is, I, that's why I was like, I don't really get it because it's blatantly obvious that Ten Hag is trying to lead his people into week in and week out, and he's trying to hold them accountable. But it is very difficult to hold someone accountable when beyond you, who is a temporary leader in their lives, when you move on, the person who actually is supposed to be the holding them accountable doesn't. It makes your job essentially impossible. And it's like it still leads to the question of what in the world is going on, because Ten Hag, you
It's
see it in
it's
his
a
face.
lack
This man looks like an American president who's gone through a couple of really bad economic spells, because he has aged significantly in the short amount of time he's
because
been there.
he's fighting a battle that he wants to win and feeling like he's getting nothing out of it. And you have admittedly years and years of malaise and lack of investment. So we talked about the fact that the stadium, which by seating is the largest in England, is
Outside of Wembley, yeah. And
outside of Wembley.
outside of
It's
the
not hosting,
major, the
yeah, but it's
international
not
stadiums, yeah.
hosting an internet. It can't host international games anymore because of the state of it. So, you
Mm.
don't care about your flagship stadium. You don't care about Carrington, the training facility, anymore, right? So they've let that go. You know, nobody's around to be and to lead, right? You don't have a present ownership. You don't have an invested CEO. You don't have an invested director of football. You don't have an invested club hierarchy. So when these guys walk into the office, they're walking into an environment where the only thing that seems to matter is the money that's being taken out of the club. And
Hmm.
so we're supposed to be playing for Manchester United. We should have the best of the best of the best of the best of the best. It should be
Right.
hard to pay for this club. But we're looking around and we're looking and we're saying, I have better facilities at whatever training club I was at. Why
That's
is
right.
this the case?
Hmm.
You know, I'm getting on the team bus, and the team bus is a jalopy and it's backfiring. Come on.
Right, right. You can still smell the
No, I don't.
commode from the back, man.
Yeah, like I don't have access to the internet. I don't have access to the internet.
Yeah, that's bad.
Come
That's
on. And so, you know, if they don't care, it's the broken window theory.
yeah, right.
If they don't care, why should I? And now you've got that one teacher in the school with all the burnt out windows yelling at the kids like it's something from Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds.
Right,
You can do this, you can be something.
right.
And they're like, huh? Are you seeing this?
Right. Open your eyes, look around. Look
Are
around.
you seeing this?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that makes complete sense to me because the the behavior is just so odd. It's just so weird that not just Manchester. You could say that at a certain point, Marcus Rashford was actually setting the tone for young players in the entire country. This is what you're supposed to do with your influence. This is what you're supposed to do with your wealth. This is what you're supposed to do with your newfound responsibility that you have to your country. He all but said it. To see a guy, because I'm not even looking at him as a player, but to see someone who had that type of an influence and had that type of especially after they missed those PKs in the Euro.
Mhm.
You saw a guy who took all of that negativity and turned it into something remarkably positive. To then go, I'm going to fly with my pal who got signed to a club in Northern Ireland. We're going to go out there. I'm going to stay up for 30 hours straight and fly back the day of at 7 o'clock in the morning and just call out.
Well,
Like,
I want to emphasize this. Marcus Rashford is a 26-year-old kid who did something that a 26-year-old kid with money does.
which I would normally agree with had he not been playing professional football for the previous 8 years.
He
My
did
point is that he had
something
been
that
in it
he
just seemed odd. It just
it was
seemed odd. Like,
odd, but it was
yeah.
odd more so because he was in a position where he was allowed to say, "Now, I don't think this will be a problem." There was
Right.
nobody to show, there's nobody left to show him how this is really done.
Right.
There's
Or
nobody
or
left
he's at
on
a
that.
point where it's like what you were saying, where it's like, well, dude, why am I sitting here trying to be the Superman,
Mhm.
trying to be Superboy or whatever you want to call him? Why am I trying to do this when there's no accountability? Why am I trying to
No, and
do
I think
this?
that's what it is.
And which is why I'm like, I am not bashing Marcus Rashford. I'm really not. I'm going like this, like, ooh,
I'm not bashing Marcus Rashford because
yeah, we
I
haven't been this whole time. I don't think we have.
no, and let me be clear, I'm not, because I've
Yeah,
been 26 years old. I've had the
yeah,
ability, and I've done stuff that I am like now. Well, we didn't think that one all the way through,
right. But I
but
didn't call out of work the next day.
I did.
Okay, well, okay, I didn't. I still went in. I was like, I gotta go to work.
No, I've definitely gone and said, all right, you know what? I'm not going into work tomorrow, so whatever. All right,
Wait.
I've had that. We've done that. It happens. Right? The fact that you're not willing to admit it tells me a lot more about you than it does about me. I'll stand up there and say, yeah, I had those nights.
Oh no, I had those nights. I just went to work and showed a
I
video.
had those nights where I thought that I could go out and do that, be up all night, and go to work the next morning and just sleep through it.
Yeah, no, man, that's
I
kidding
mean,
me.
it happens. I get
David
it.
Attenborough, Planet Earth, boy, that saved me several times when I was younger.
I mean, listen, I am thankful that I didn't grow up in the internet age because there were plenty of nights where I was working DJ commission Rob Profit where there were
Mm-hmm.
some really long nights and I had to
Mm-hmm.
be doing something the next morning. And if A had known about B, there would have been a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
but anyway,
But but
it was the
but that gets back to the crux of the conversation though, where it's like
it's
that's
not
why
that
it's
he
not
did it, it was what environment exists that he thought that he could.
exactly.
And the
Exactly. And
environment
that's
that
the
he
basis
thinks
of
that
what
he
why
can
I'm
in this
scratching my head.
situation is one in which there is a lack of accountability on the players. There's
Mm-hmm.
no pressure. You bypass, you take Eric Ten Hag out of the equation because it's coming around him. I don't want people to think like he's not trying to hold the players accountable.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
think
that at
he's
all.
trying his best to hold the players accountable, but they're saying like no, like he's the teacher in the middle of the, I hate to say it, he's the new Teach for America teacher in the middle of the inner city school where
Mm-hmm.
they've done nothing, high school where they've done nothing and never been held accountable for the previous
Mm-hmm.
years, yelling now like, hey, if you don't do your homework, you're getting a detention.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, all right, I'm gonna skip detention anyway. I'm gonna
Right.
walk front door and walk out the back, and they're not
Yeah. Well,
all
first
gung
of
ho
all,
about it.
and the teacher who's supposed to be covering detention probably isn't going to be there
They're there
anyway.
anyway. And I think that was what Ralph Ragnick was getting at when he said there is more here than you can possibly imagine how to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's there's
And that's why we're seeing the
that's why we're
results
seeing this.
on the
Yeah.
field.
Mm-hmm.
It's because, and even unintentionally, I think there has been this sense of lack of accountability for players, even from Ten Hag, whether he intends it or not. Jadon Sancho says something in the media about how he feels like he's being held to a different standard.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's
Being
ostracized, he's
scapegoated.
forced out of the
Mm-hmm.
club.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Anthony continues to get games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But that's
And I
it. I
think that's
mean,
part of the reason is like, why am I being kept out of the squad? Because you say I'm not training hard enough and I'm not doing this, and I'm being held to this standard where I can't even get a game no
mm-hmm.
matter what I do. Where this clown is starting every week.
Mm-hmm.
And he has done, excuse my language, but he's done fuck all since he got there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think it's an intentional thing. I think it's a subconscious thing on the part of Eric Ten Hag where he's saying, well, I know this kid. I know what he can do. I know it. He's a good kid. He's going to come along. I just need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this. Where Jadon Sancho saying, F you, dude. And all the other
Mhm.
players are looking at how he's treating some of these guys and whether that's where I am going to criticize Ten Hag. He needs to
Mhm.
step back
That's true. I agree
and
with
look
that.
at what and how he approaches different players
Mhm.
because he needs to do a self scout and realize that there's a possibility that he is his own worst enemy in this
Mhm.
situation because he's got a player, and I would argue, like based on performance, Jadon Sancho should be given a shot, should be given a shot ahead of Anthony. But Anthony
Mhm.
kept getting games, kept getting games, kept getting games, kept getting games, kept getting games with no end product to show for
Mhm. Okay.
it.
Yeah.
And so when he voices his opinion and says, like, all right, like, why is this the case? He demands an apology and says, no, you're going to train away from the team.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. So it's a whole lot of rot
Yeah.
in that team. There's nobody to keep. They lost not only their iconic manager, but they lost their iconic director of football. The
Mhm.
two people who in tandem formed the atmosphere for the whole entire club, top to bottom, the same year, and they've never been able to get it back.
Yeah.
Now, I'm hoping that we're going to see they hired the guy from Manchester City. He said he was going to take over the program, and I want to see, like, if he fails, then if he fails, if Sir Jim fails, because they know how to run an organization properly. Sir Jim knows how to run a successful corporation. Yes, I'm going to throw shade at the Glazers. They're
Mm-hmm.
second generation money.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. Malcolm made the money. They just spend it. They don't run successful operations because they just manage. And
Mm-hmm.
that's because they don't know how to do anything except manage. Right. And so when old man Glazer was alive, he knew what it took to run the organization and manage it. They're coming in. The first generation makes it, the second generation loses it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. So you got an individual in Sir Jim who's back now, makes who made the money. He knows how to run an organization. He hired a guy as his CEO who he believes is the best in the business, who is being groomed to take over City Sports Group. If the two of them can't be successful, then the rot in the club is so systemic now over the course of the last 10 years
Mm-hmm.
that that failure is the only option. And by that I mean they have to get relegated. They have to basically be in a situation where the Glazers are so unprofitable that they have to be forced to sell, and somebody has to almost revive it as a Phoenix club.
Wow.
Because that will show, if those two people, the people who have been put in charge right now, and the owner and the CEO can't succeed with all of their know-how,
Mm-hmm.
then there is literally too much rot, too much malaise, too much. And look, it happens. When you neglect a house for long enough, Stead, you're in real estate. When you neglect a house for long enough, there is no amount of rehabbing that even the best
No, you got to strip it.
the best
You got to strip it.
contractor can
Yep.
do.
Nope. You got to
You just
strip it
have to
down to the
drop it and
bones.
move on.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I can go into a look at a building and say, like, it might have the bones of a god, but the rot around it is so bad that all we can do is just drop it in place and say, and toast its memory.
Mm-hmm.
All right, enough of that
Wow.
diatribe. Let's
I'm gonna
go
have to
and
make sure I
welcome
cut that and put that as a separate video, man.
go for it. Let's welcome in our good friend Celtic Cam, who comes to us with strep throat, but still excited to talk about things from the land of enchantment. Cam, how goes it, good sir?
What's up, boys?
You
No, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad.
I
No,
was
don't
like,
worry, don't worry.
geez, Cam. That's
No,
not
it's not
that's
that bad.
laryngitis, man.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, if it was that bad, do you have one of those push button throat things that you've been smoking 40
Yes,
packs a
yeah.
day for the last 2 hours?
Don't smoke cigarettes.
3 packs a day, kids.
So,
Oh,
so, so, all right. They say the best remedy for strep throat is good scotch. So, what are you drinking?
I love my Macallan. Macallan 13.
I got a bottle, and I was going to bring it on, of something from the Traveler series called Macallan Lumina. You can only get it at resorts and on cruise ships.
That's those Scots again. Just, man, brilliant. They only sell certain things, certain places, so they can make that extra buck. I
Hey,
need
I
to
got to give
taste
them
it. I
credit
need to
though.
see if
It
it's any
actually
good.
it's a good bottle of scotch. I liked it. Probably not the same profile as the 12, 13, 15, 18, 21 that Macallan is most well known for.
Okay.
Because it's not aged the same way.
Okay.
So it's still it's still a single malt, because I don't think you can have scotch that's a blend, right?
Yeah, no. Well, that's one of those things that's up for debate, but you'll never have a Macallan blend.
Yeah, but They didn't say the age because they said it's non-age specific, which tells me that I think that they're selling it under a label,
Hmm.
but they're aging it to different ages. So they're
Yeah. So
not blending
then,
it. But this barrel may only go 5 years where that barrel goes 7.
oh, so then it is blended. Interesting.
No,
I
no,
didn't.
no, no, no. It's not blended because blended would be you put the 7 in with the 5.
Okay. Yeah, I
I'm saying
that's how it works. But I thought you were saying that.
no, not they put the barrels together. Like they will draw bottles from one barrel that's only 5 years old, whereas another barrel might be 7.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, okay, okay. Huh. Okay. It was half good. It was pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's got a good flavor profile. I'm happy to share it with you next time I see you when you're
I was
over.
I was gonna say I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, I mean it's good. I'm gonna make you know what? I feel the need for a good Rob Roy later. I got the bitters. I got I got the vermouth, and I got a bottle of Glenfiddich 12 that I think is going to be real perfect for that.
That's nice. That's a good like middle of the road whiskey. I love that Glenfiddich 12. Yep.
So let's talk about things. It's been a while.
It has. It has. I'm either sick or not in town or yeah. It's
Injured
been a
or
bit.
anything. So
Injured
in
as
the
well,
time
yeah.
that we have since we've talked, um Celtic went through a bit of a rough patch at the end of November into December. They won their first European game in since the Norman conquest. Um they've righted the ship. They're still not scoring at the rate that we probably would like them as they go into this, but they're maintaining a 5 point lead over Rangers. But Rangers do have a game in hand.
Hmm.
Um, the good news is that I believe, unless I'm mistaken, they are 2-0 against the Huns this year, at least in the league.
No, that's correct. I will say to your point, this year has been kind of iffy. I've never enjoyed Brendan Rodgers football, whether he was managing Celtic or in the Premier League. I don't know about you. You probably know more about the Premier League side of him, but I've just never enjoyed his football, and I find it very vanilla almost, just like very plain, not much different than what it usually is. And I'm seeing that again. I'm a bit worried about Europe coming up because of that.
It, it's a matter of perspective. When he took over at Liverpool, they had struggled for a while. He got him up to second in the league. He took over Celtic after Neil Lennon, and he kept the ship right. In fact, improved on results under Neil Lennon. Then he goes to Leicester, where he actually bought a Leicester team and made them competitive for a long time. Now he goes to a
Right.
situation where he's taken over a team from a manager who's way more forward thinking than he is, and has produced a brand of football that, while not successful in Europe, was way more successful domestically and arguably has been successful in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And so we go through this 2 year period with Celtic where, after he got a couple of his players in, Ange was just playing this great stuff, and it was forward thinking. It was attack, 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 attack. It was great to
Yep.
watch. And
Exciting. Yep.
it's like when you've only alternated in between Domino's and Pizza Hut, and then you go out and you get that great gourmet slice for the first time, it's hard to go back to Domino's and Pizza Hut. Like, I'm
Yeah.
never, if I'd only had Outback steak my entire life and I go to Morton's, I'm never going to look at Outback again, even though Outback is pretty functional.
I actually just had that tonight for dinner, believe it or not. So
Mhm.
great call out. First time I've had it in like 10 years. So great call out.
What, Outback or Morton's?
Outback. I wish it was Morton's. Wish it was
Yeah, but
Morton's.
that's the
Hey,
thing.
I
Like,
don't hate on Outback. Outback's good.
It was
Outback's
pretty damn good. I've
Outback's
got like 8 leftovers downstairs too.
Outback's a perfectly good steakhouse. I like it. It's good. It's sort of, but if you go from there and then you go to
Yeah.
Morton's, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, you've tasted the good stuff. You've tasted the real like premier. Yeah, yeah.
And
No,
so I think there's a
I
lot
get
of that
that.
with Brendan Rodgers right now. The results aren't that far off of what they were under Ange. It's just the brand of football that they're playing. It leaves a lot to be desired because these are games that you're winning 1 or 2-0, whereas last year they would have been 4 or 5.
Yeah. I think that's literally hitting the nail on the head right there. It was exciting football, and a football game can get unexciting when it's 3-0, 4-0 sort of thing, but with Ange it was continuously exciting no matter what the score was. And I think you're absolutely right. I think, we still have a solid manager, not shitting on Brendan Rodgers or anything like that, even though did leave us midway through the season at one point when we desperately needed him. But anyway, but it's just not the same level of football. I saw a Celtic that, my dad would watch the game and be like, that's the Celtic I remember from when I was a boy. It was that explosive. It was, that level of domination sort of thing. And that's the first time I kind of experienced that, except for maybe the earlier Neil Lennon days, early 2000s sort of thing. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I do miss Ange, and I will say I wish all the best for Ange. Great manager, and I hope he does do well at Spurs. I really do. I think he brought in some good players, installed some good confidence in the players that we still currently have. So I've got no hard feelings against him.
Let's take a look. So we know Celtic and Rangers are at the top of the league, 1-2, but we're creeping ever closer to our favorite time of year. Instead, you got to get ready for the split.
Yes. The split that still doesn't make complete sense, but it's all good.
Never makes complete sense to me, but it is the most Scottish thing that you can ever do. Um, the fun thing about the split right now is there is a grand total of 5 points between Aberdeen in eighth and Kilmarnock in St. Mirren in fifth. Two of those teams are going to make it. Two of those teams are not. Um, I don't know. You want to hazard a bet on which two of the four right now you think are going to make it into the top come the split time?
I will say, right now I'm feeling like Dundee. Half of me is saying I really hope Dundee is going to make it, and the other half of me is saying I think they will make it. I think Tony's done a great job at Dundee, bringing them up from, the Scottish Championship to where they are now. Dundee FC has always been one of those what I call a filler team. They never really make it too far. They're always like middle of the table, or they're switching between. Sorry, any Dundee fans, by the way. Sorry, don't come to my house.
Yeah, both of them that
Um,
listen to this show.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know Stead's one, so Stead don't. Um, but they don't make it that far, and I'm really impressed with them this season with the budget they've had over the past 5 years. Tony's done a great job managing them, bringing them up to where they are. Um, I'm I'm thoroughly impressed. So I'm really hoping that they're able to sneak in fifth, maybe, yeah, fifth maybe. And then St. Mirren, I want St. Mirren to stay as well. I think St. Mirren deserves it this season. They've held out really strong. Um, Hibs and Aberdeen and Motherwell, I'm surprised, but you know what? They just haven't been they've been lackluster. I mean, Aberdeen today was lackluster. So, yeah.
Aberdeen did so well last season to get themselves into Europe, got into Europe now.
Yep.
They're having another lackluster season where they find themselves likely to miss out on the split and be competing at the bottom for relegation. You know, I think that's the thing with why that club can never get past where it is because it never figures out a way to be consistent from one season to the next.
There's also a lot of management issues with Aberdeen. Like they have some really good players usually. They have some players that Celtic are eyeing up, that international clubs eye up, things like that. But there's always a management issue at Aberdeen. Um, I might over the next few weeks try to delve deeper into the management side of things with Aberdeen, but every year it seems like they've got a good set of players, but there's an issue with the management or like the board or behind closed doors sort of thing. So I do feel for Aberdeen fans, but yeah, it's an odd situation at Aberdeen always.
So we are a grand total. We're going to wrap up with this. We're a grand total of 3 days away from the start of Six Nations. I see you dressed up in your Scottish finest. Stead and I were talking a little bit earlier about it. I know that we're going to get together and do a special show where we get more into previews and stuff like that.
I'm gonna repost our rules show, Cam, too. Repost that.
Yes, yes.
A little bit later this week. But as we gear up, give us a quick preview of what you think lies ahead for Scotland as they enter this 2-month gauntlet known as the Six Nations.
So Scotland has some big changes coming in terms of like their players. We have a captaincy change. Richie is out, which I'm half in, half out with. I thought he did a pretty decent job last Six Nations, so I'm a bit surprised, especially the fact that it's going to be it's a co-captaincy with Rory Darge and Finn Russell. I will say the Finn Russell part makes sense to me. Some people don't think he's a legend. I don't know who, but some people don't think he's a legend. I think he's a legend. Oh, there he is.
I think he's a little bit I think he's come around a little bit more and he's living up more to his potential than he has at times in the past. There's definitely been a strained relationship between him and Gregor Townsend over the years.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he's not a legend though. I mean,
he's arguably the best player.
his statistics in the Six
Statistics are
Nations shows
awesome.
otherwise.
His statistics are awesome. I just question whether or not he's necessarily. We talked about this when we talked about Manchester United. It's one thing to be the best player on the team. It's another thing entirely to be the leader of the team. And I'm hoping this Six Nations you see him step up and be the true leader of that team.
Well, I think that's why he's being given the co-captaincy this year. I think this past Six Nations, I saw him more in a leadership role than I have ever seen him before. So I think this idea with the co-captaincy between him and Rory Darge, I think is a great move. I really do. And I'm excited to see hopefully Russell step up and become, as you say, that leader, because you're absolutely right. He's an absolutely amazing player, but part of being an amazing player is being a leader too. That's what defines your peak, I think. So I'm hoping maybe this will be the first year we win Six Nations. Who knows? I'm pretty excited. If we do, you guys won't hear from me for probably about a month. I'll be,
If they win Six Nations, I might be out there with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Scotland.
I might need to catch a red eye. Something out there, man.
You have to. I'm gonna go to Scotland, Tenerife. I'm
Mhm.
gonna hit the different places. I'm just gonna follow the team around while they're celebrating. So I hope you guys got some cash on the site or air miles or something.
Yeah.
But
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll make it work. But no, I'm excited for Scotland this year. I think we've got a good team. We've got a nice mix of older guys and younger guys. So, and our first few games are pretty decent.
All right, buddy. So I'll talk to you later on this week when we get together to talk some Six Nations rugby in depth. But otherwise, thanks so much for joining us and giving us the latest on the land of enchantment that is Scotland.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you. I will talk to y'all soon.
All right. See you Thursday, Cam.
Let's go from one culture that drinks way too much to another culture that drinks way too much. And welcome in our good friend Byron Robb. How goes it, good sir?
Not too bad, gents. How's it going?
Um, Stead, last week we talked about the fact that there have been no transfers. I think over the course of the last couple of days, Bayern announced that they had signed Sasha Bowie for 30 million euros. That is the most expensive transfer that has occurred in January.
Mm.
And one of only 8 worldwide transfers that tops out in double digits in terms of millions of euros spent.
Mm.
So, thanks, Rob, for spending money and actually giving us something to talk about when it comes to the transfer window, because otherwise it's been pretty dead.
It has been dead. Maybe everybody's scared of financial fair play. Who knows? I know we've heard there's been rumblings here and there about players, but nothing huge. I think everybody realizes that the winter transfer window, it's simply for sizing up reinforcements. You're not making a big splash here. You just need some bodies. So if you have injuries like Bayern has, or you need an extra oomph, to get you to the title race, like a Leverkusen has, with a Spanish player from Real Betis. Those are the type of transfers that are working here. No one's going to transfer for 50, 60, 90 million euros or pounds or quid or whatever. So it's just not that. Just all it is just people shifting around, looking for deals. Potentially anybody, who's leaving in a Bosman soon, signing 3 contracts. That's really it. It's been really dead. You're right. It's just been.
Yeah, instead, I don't know about you. I'm shocked. I'm used to it is tomorrow's deadline day.
Mm-hmm.
And there is not a credible rumor that I can think of to where I'm thinking like this will actually happen.
There's not even buzz about it being deadline day either.
No,
No,
there's no buzz
Buzz
whatsoever.
about it. Yeah.
I mean, from USA point of view, we've heard rumblings that Gio Reyna's on his way to Nottingham Forest. So much so that we have plain information. And that's
but would that be a permanent? That would be a loan deal. I can't see them selling him to Nottingham Forest permanently, and I can't see him wanting to go to Nottingham Forest.
I think we've heard it's a loan with an option to buy. But we don't know specifics. Obviously, ever since Daddy Reyna became his agent, it's been a little bit chaotic over there.
We spoke at length about that, Rob.
Yeah. I imagine so.
Yeah.
I imagine so.
I think it's a good move for him to try and get to the Premier League, but I just can't see going to Nottingham Forest.
Why would you go to a team that's always a season away from getting relegated?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I don't really get.
This is the Leeds America thing all over again, and we saw how that ultimately ended up. Again, if you know the script and you know the outcome, why are you going to reenact the whole thing? Like, I can tell you, don't reenact Romeo and Juliet. They both die at the end. Anyway, I guess, can we officially say we have a title race in the
we've had a title race for a while. I mean, the only question is, who is more likely to win it, and at the moment it's Leverkusen. Because they're hot. They have hot players, informed players, and Bayern are just chugging along, basically surviving with scraps and VAR decisions. It's just been really an awful season. Like, if you're a Bayern fan, like, there's just no consistency. You're like, what is this team? Like, yeah, you're picking up points here and there, but you're like, it's not convincing. It's not even attractive football.
They went out, last year, the deal was that they needed to go out and get a top flight striker. So they went out and they got we need a number 9. We need a number 9. We need somebody to replace Robert Lewandowski.
Well, they got that. He's got 23 goals this season. He's clearly scoring. Scoring goals isn't a problem for Bayern.
Leroy Sané is in the form of his life. you know, where is it not happening for Bayern right now?
The fullbacks. Davies is like a shell of himself. I mean, he scored this weekend with his right foot, by the way, even though it's very left foot dependent. He's like a James Rodriguez with the dependency on the foot. When he cuts inside like from the left into the middle of the midfield. He cuts in with the left foot. He can't use the right. It's like he's allergic to it. And he's been a shell of himself. I don't know what happened to him. He's not electric
Is it
anymore.
that he's been a shell of himself offensively or a shell of himself defensively? Remember, this is not a guy that was a trained left back. He's a winger by trade.
He's a shell of himself all around. Ever since him and Jordan Heitema broke up, it's been awful. Like it's just been bad. But there's no potential like right back. Like Mazraoui was hurt, and now he's in Africa. He's playing in the African Cup of Nations. They let Stanisic go to Leverkusen on loan. And they're just like they have no solution. Pavard's gone, right? So that's over with. They have like no solutions at all whatsoever, and fullbacks. The midfield
this is where
atrocious.
Sasha Bowie comes in because I guess you're hoping
Yep.
at 30 million pounds you can fill him in at right back
Yep.
and that'll get you both.
Yeah, Sergio Gnabry's been hurt almost all year. He's on his verge of coming back again. Like he broke his hand, then he came back and he hurt something in his leg. That's been awful. The double pivot midfield has been bad. Like Goretzka's been Kimmich is like doesn't know what he wants to do. Do they want to play it as an 8? Do they want to step back as a 6? Don't know what's going on either. Coleman's been okay here and there. They don't know what to do with the 10 spot. Do they want to put Muller there? Do they want to put Musiala there? Musiala's been hurt a bit too early on in the year. And you're still relying on Manuel Neuer, who's gone a while with a broken leg. He's still out there. I mean, he's doing okay, but like he's not like he's making some spectacular saves, but he's not the Neuer that we know. But they're just playing slow. They're just playing awful. Like I feel bad for like Harry Kane and others. So I'm like, you're just like Thomas Tuchel has destroyed the confidence of this team. You look at them and they don't feel it. They just like they're going through the paces and emotions. And like I said, the quality is good enough to pick up points, and they really don't deserve to. But when it counts against top competition, like I had no faith that like when they go up against Leverkusen again, that they're gonna like get 3 points. Before it was like, okay, yeah, I have a good confidence that they're gonna get 3 points, but now, no way. They struggle against, they struggle against Augsburg. They lost to Bremen. I mean, it's been battle here. I mean, and I know like it's weird for me to say that they're in second place. They're out by 2 points, but for the roster size and the players that we know who are here, like this should be a team that should be 5 points up on the table.
So I think it's safe to assume that unless something weird happens and somehow Tuchel manages to win a double, that he's likely to be replaced at the end of the season, which will keep in line with Tuchel's tendency of staying at any one place about 18 months.
It's weird. Like the problem is any potential replacement is just not available. Like Klopp won't be available because Klopp wants a year off. Okay, so that's not an option. I don't think Hansi Flick's coming back because I think like after the Germany job, the rumor is that he needs to earn his way back into the upper echelon. Xabi Alonso, now that the Liverpool job is open, if Leverkusen wins the title, Xabi Alonso's out. He's gone. He has nothing to prove. He's won the title, the league, took it from Bayern. Like they're going to build a statue for him over at Leverkusen, and he's going to go to Liverpool. Okay, so that's out of the picture. Okay, does Julian Nagelsmann come back? He doesn't have a club job after the Euros, but like, will he come back? I mean, the people that fired him are gone. But like, do you want to go back to the well? I think Nagelsmann will coach Bayern again, just not this soon. I mean, there's no really options. I mean, the only other option, and this is a big jump, is Sebastian Hoeneß at Stuttgart, and that's a big jump for him. He's doing really good over there with the talent he has. I mean, they spanked Leipzig like these convincingly this past weekend. But even then, like, it's a big jump from Stuttgart to Bayern. I know he's like, he's royalty over there, with the name, but it's not. So what I'm saying is, like, I think Tuchel could lose a league, and I think Bayern are sort of okay with that. They're gonna just go with the flow. They're gonna let him play out his contract and let him go. I think, like, it needs to be a total disaster against Leverkusen. They need to almost like get to third place, and then I think then Tuchel might be sacked. But there just it really isn't anybody available to replace him with, and so Bayern are sort of stuck with Tuchel.
All right, Stead, I know you wanted to talk to Rob about, especially about the Leverkusen thing. So take
Yeah,
it
well,
away.
that was last week though. I was just watching I mean, I was really wanting to chat with you about the what was it? I think it was Frankfurt versus Hoffenheim, where I think it ended up 3-2 with a red card, and I wasn't expecting Mike to jump to me on this one, but with coming into this week.
You mean Freiburg versus Hoffenheim?
Freiburg, I'm sorry. Yeah, I said it wrong. Freiburg versus Hoffenheim game. Yeah, I was trying to check my screen over here real quick. There's always seems to be one team every year that seems to tickle your fancy that's outside of the Bayern, Dortmund, and maybe in Leipzig. So you're looking at Stuttgart now kind of like having this. I mean, this team was relegated not that long ago, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, correct.
They were in
Yeah, I
Bundesliga
remember.
too.
Yeah,
So,
they were relegated when like Pavard was there.
yeah. So is that kind of are they the Freiburg of this year or the Frankfurt of this year, or who's the other squad in the Bundesliga that is going to make a lot of noise?
It's
Who's
Stuttgart.
going to qualify? Yeah, so so do you see Stuttgart qualifying for Champions League and making it very difficult next year for teams?
I think Stuttgart qualify for Champions League. I think they're good. They're balanced enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sebastian Hoeneß is a great coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's an up and rising coach. There's not too many German coaches who are young and hungry and are on the rise. I mean, Nagelsmann's one of them, but he's had the top job, so like he doesn't really count as a rising star in the coaching ranks. It's Sebastian Hoeneß. Like, I think when he got sacked from Hoffenheim, it was very short-sighted of them. I think he has a brilliant mind. I think he has great players. Stuttgart's going to make a killing on Garassi. He's going to go somewhere, and he might not do as well,
right,
wherever he goes. But Stuttgart's going to make cash on him.
He had a decent season last season too, if I remember correctly, right?
Not as good as this season is. Like,
yeah, of course, but
he just went like above and beyond. It's like something. Yeah. Now he's calmed down a little bit. He really got really hot. But the team is just balanced, and it's not like, other than Garassi, the team is not full of a player that's like, is outperformed themselves and are they had to sell. Like, the team as a whole is rising up together and playing well together. Like for example, like the one player I really like this season, and I've been following him for a long time, is Angelo Stieler. He played for Bayern 2, won a trophy with Sebastian Hoeneß at Bayern 2. And he just come into his own. Like, he's a proper number 6, has stats comparable to Kimmich, even better on the defensive side of things. So he's a player that, like, I really like. But those type of players, they're like role players, hungry, they're working hard. Sebastian Hoeneß getting a ton out of them. Stuttgart, I think, it's going to be a big task for them. They make Champions League, and you know how it is. It's an extra week. Extra game a week. That means your squad is thinner.
And it's expanded. They have 2 extra games next year.
Exactly. You have extra games. With the Swiss model or whatever model they use now. But so because of that, like, then you went through a problem with a Union's going through, where they brought in all this talent just because they're in Champions League, and now look, it's gotten them nowhere.
Yeah, they're
so-
really struggling. They're
yeah,
really struggling.
So
yeah.
it's a really tough ask. Stuttgart is the team this year, but it's those teams, like, it's hard for them to stay there. Like, if they make Champions League, I think they will make Champions League. And I think part of it is because Dortmund is just so inconsistent.
Mhm.
I think Leipzig will
seems to be kind of like in a rebuild almost.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Mhm.
if Leipzig has enough talent. Well, I mean, look, they got spanked last week by Stuttgart, but a big part of that was because their talisman and Xavi Simmons was not playing. He was suspended on red card. I mean, a yellow card
yellow
accumulation
cards,
or
yeah.
something. So, but he changes the flow of that team. Openda's a really good striker at Leipzig. I think they'll be there, but I think Stuttgart make it. But then, like, it's one of those teams that they're going to struggle to stay up there. They're going to fall back down to earth a little bit next season when they have the extra matches to play. But this season is Stuttgart. Before it was Freiburg, and before that was Union. Right. So this year is Stuttgart, and I'm happy for them. They're a story club, especially you love Porsches and Mercedes Benzes. You love Stuttgart, but they've done all the little things behind the scenes. Getting themselves back. Once they got back promoted to the Bundesliga, getting the right people involved. Having a solid board and spending modestly. Even though they have big sponsors, obviously Mercedes-Benz is a big sponsor, but they're still spending modestly, and it's helped them here. And then obviously great coaching, really good players, all playing together. And that's what you got. They're a fun team to watch all season. And look out for them.
Okay.
All right, so Rob, as we get ready for the next round of Bundesliga matches, what should we be watching for this weekend?
Okay, so the Heidelheim Dortmund game is going to be an interesting one because I think Heidelheim has punched above their weight, and Dortmund's always bound to screw something. I mean, I think they drew this.
Dortmund's bound to play at the level of their opponent.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I think this is a draw the first time they played in the fall. So this is a game to watch. Probably the most even match will be Freiburg Stuttgart. Stuttgart will be away. So I like that matchup. Also, then you have the OG, the Klassiker, which is Bayern and Gladbach. And Bayern, I think they can win, but Gladbach really made life miserable for Leverkusen. Leverkusen had a great game. They just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So, and Gladbach for some reasons plays Bayern really well. So that's going to be interesting as well. For those of you who have ESPN, highly recommend watching the Goal Arena, which is like the conference, which is like the red zone for Bundesliga. It's on ESPN.
Me and my son, we signed into it. What was it? It was 2 weeks ago. And my son's the one that wanted to watch that game. And so, but he was like, he's like, let's go to that one. You're right. That's a great feed. That's really, really exciting to watch this. And if you're not 100% familiar with Bundesliga, you can get a really good taste of what the games have to offer over there and see how exciting they play over there. So yeah, I concur that I definitely will plug that channel. That's a great channel.
Yeah, the Goal Arena is the American version of what over in Germany they call the conference.
Okay.
And it's fantastic work. I love it all. So yeah, no, the one thing I'm interested in, I think Leipzig's going to really spank Union Berlin, but Union Berlin won last week, and it's been a while for them. So I mean, I want them to do well, and also I want them to beat Leipzig because I can't stand Leipzig.
Yeah.
But look, I have a friend of mine in Chicago. He's a big Cone fan, and one of the things he always says was, always watch Friday games, and because they're always just wild and crazy for some reason. And this is why I like the Heidelheim Dortmund game as well. Heidelheim will be at home. So, just watch that. It's only game on the schedule on Friday. So just watch it at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, those are my matchups of the week, or my top spielers of the week.
All right, Rob, thanks a lot for joining us and talking a little bit about Bundesliga.
Cool, thank you.
All right, good to see you again. So, we got to welcome in Professor Matt and talk about what arguably has to be the.
AFCON. This is the craziest tournament I have ever seen in my
Well, before
life.
we get into, do we want to get into AFCON first or the big announcement that came out midweek?
It's up to you, Mike.
Let's, you know what?
Let's do the
let's
announcement.
start
Do the
with-
announcement. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do with the announcement.
Mhm.
By now, if you're watching this show, I assume that you're a pretty big soccer fan and you know that Wednesday, I guess, it broke that Jurgen Klopp
It was
was going to
Friday because I'm
Friday.
on Fridays, and so is my wife, and there were tears around coffee. Not by me, but yeah, we've been taking it okay.
This had all, so Jurgen Klopp is going to step down at the end of the season. He cited burnout, although we know that there have always been like stipulations in this contract that assume that he would leave and leave possibly before seeing out the length of the contract. This one kind of came out of left field. To me, it had all the markings of a classic Jurgen Klopp move where he just woke up on Friday morning or on Thursday, probably Thursday, to set up the announcement, but woke up on Thursday and said, I just don't feel like doing this anymore. And told the club hierarchy, I'm gone. I don't feel as though Liverpool really had the inkling that he was going to do this.
So there's some question about exactly when he reached this conclusion. In the press conference, he had made mention of the fall. The hierarchy were aware. The question is, was it 2 weeks ago? Was it around Christmas? Etc. And I get the sense that they did at least have some kind of heads up, because it's not just Jurgen who's leaving, it's all of his peeps. And the sporting director that he had some drinks with years ago back in the fatherland and brought in as a rent-a-dude this year. Like, there was talk about renegotiating with Schmatka and bringing him back next year. Apparently those negotiations ended around the new year, which would kind of sort of indicate that, okay, if Klopp's leaving, why are we just going to carry around his boy? I mean, he was Klopp's choice, less FSG's choice. But yeah, the timing and the announcement of the decision is a little strange.
All right, so the only thing I can liken this to kind of is when Sir Alex stepped down at Manchester United, but that was a different breed because Manchester United are a publicly traded company. And as soon as they have knowledge of major personnel changes that could materially affect the value of the club, they need to make an announcement. He kind of was in a situation where Sir Alex had to make that announcement, especially ahead of around the time of the first quarter earnings call, which is when he did it. FSG own Liverpool. You know, Klopp could have made the announcement in the fall. He could have made the announcement 2 weeks before the end of the season if that was what he chose.
Well, you have to wonder about that, because I get the sense that he probably would have in early May. Chatter in Liverpool land is that this was preemptive, because he had made this decision earlier. Someone outside of the club structure, aka the media, probably was aware or semi-aware of it, and so he decided to make this announcement when he did. So I mean, again, a lot of this is speculation. There's a lot of this. He says burnout, and I sort of had to laugh when you said that, because I believe him, but reading between the lines, part of that burnout is FSG and working with FSG. So I mean, that I'll say it, but yeah, it's the timing.
we just temporarily lost Matt.
Am I
You're cutting in and out. You're frozen. Okay, start over. You said the timing and then jump back in.
the timing is a little strange, and which is why I think maybe this was preemptive. We're competing on all four fronts. Something like this could do one of two things. It can galvanize a team, or it could do the exact opposite. And you have guys thinking, well, damn, I'm not going to run through the wall for this, for a guy who's literally not going to be here in a couple months. So the timing is legitimately strange.
I think that the one thing when he made the announcement that he was going to leave Borussia Dortmund around the same time under much different circumstances. They were really struggling, and when at his last season at Borussia Dortmund, he was actually able to guide them back into Europe when it looked like they weren't going to be able to do it.
And did they win the Pokal that year? I mean, I wish Rob was here because he probably would know. But did they?
I think they might have gone on a run in the Pokal later on. I do know that they were like 10th in the league when he said that he was going to step down at the end of the season, which would have been right around this time. And I didn't put two and two together at the time, but afterwards they ran on a massive run, probably picked up more points in the Bundesliga than any team that year in the second half of the season and got themselves all the way back up into the Champions League. I use that to say, like, my sense of Klopp's relationship with his players is that it's not going to sour because he's not going to go there. They're going to want to send him off. And I'm looking at the core, the leaders on that team. It starts with Virgil van Dijk, who I think he has a very good relationship with, and goes forward. I think that they'll be able to maintain. I do find it interesting, though, that with this announcement, when he left Borussia Dortmund, the decline in the team at the time had kind of signaled like it was probably the right time for you to go. You've done a great job, and it gave them time to come up with a succession plan, which was fine, but here's a team, like you said, that's competing on three fronts right now that has. We've talked for years about the fact, like, okay, we thought that he was going to leave probably after last year or one of the down years when it was like, okay, I've got this rebuild in front of me and I don't know if I want to do it. But what he actually has managed to do is keep some semblance of continuity in the squad, even when we spoke at length last year about how poor and how old the midfield was, and then in one transfer window he goes out and fixes all that. What are they going to do in attack? Sadio Mane is going, but we've got Luis Diaz, Diogo Jota, and Darwin Nunez, who may have had a rough start to life at Liverpool, but has certainly shown what he is. So the attack is good, the midfield's good. You're probably going to lose Mo Salah, but at the same time, you've got Darwin Nunez, Jota, and it actually probably solves more problems than anything else because now you have the three guys that he would like up at the top that can play as those three guys. The only area where I could conceivably say that he probably needs to figure out some replacements for is in defense. Virgil van Dijk's not getting any younger. Ibrahim Konate is a good player, but you need somebody to partner him with. Andy Robertson's getting up there. He's been consistently hurt. That's where if I would identify it, and it seems like, okay, well, we targeted the attack one year, we targeted the midfield another year. Now we're going to focus purely on the defense this year. So he could have kept this thing going. Now you have, though, the issue of you've got a team that's built to play Klopp ball, and I got to give him credit. I aspire to be that dude. I said this on the chat. He's like the dude who rented the house moved out and said, you know what, when I move out, I'm taking the floorboards, the
Yeah.
plumbing, the electricity, the drywall. I'm leaving you with the damn studs, and that's it. So you're going to have to bring in a coach that can look at these guys and say, I can come up with a way for them to play that will still be successful. And all three of us are NFL fans. We can all look at a roster and say, like, hey, this team has really good players. You know, it'd be hard for a coach to lose with them. But then when you look at it, even in the NFL or anything, it's like, okay, you have players who are set up to do one thing. You know, Andy Reid is not going to go in and coach a team like Atlanta that's set up to run the ball. He doesn't have the personnel to do what he wants to.
And he'll
know-
refuse to do that.
Hmm?
And he'll refuse to do that on
Yeah. And so it's a bit of an issue now. And on top of that, right following that, you get the announcement that Xavi is standing down at Barcelona. We already knew that this is going to be Carlo Ancelotti's last season at Real Madrid. We talked with Rob. We know that Bayern Munich, Tuchel may not make it at Bayern Munich. There's a better than average chance, as I said, that Erik ten Hag's out of a job at the end of the season at Manchester United. And there's always PSG, and who knows what they're going to do. Have we ever been in a situation where there aren't enough coaches, but there are like 6 or 7 major openings all at the same time, all of which require, some of which require a very specific skill set to go in. And we talked, Rob said, Xavi Alonso.
that. He would be my first choice.
He would be your first choice, but he'd also probably be Real Madrid's first choice too. And he has
actually
historical ties to
Bayern.
both.
Yeah.
And that's part of the thing too, because Xavi's legacy is cemented at all three clubs that might have openings. We definitely have one. Bayern yet to be seen, but I if they fired Nagelsmann, I think they're going to fire Tuchel. Real Madrid, we're not sure about Ancelotti yet. You know, he's rumored for the Brazil job, but then he, I guess, looked at Brazil and was like, "Oh, F this."
He's also said he wants to go back home and just spend some more time with his family. I
Yeah.
think he's got grandkids now, and he's like, I've been doing this.
We don't
so
know
long.
what that situation's going to be. So he has ties to all three of those clubs. He understands the culture of all three of those clubs. It's going to be interesting. Where I think Liverpool might have a slight advantage is we've been attempting to poach Simon Rolfels, who's the sporting director at Leverkusen, for about the last year and a half. He was the guy we wanted last summer, and he said, 9-9, I have work to do here. If we are able to secure him, I think that helps. And I think it also depends on Xabi Alonso's mentality, because all three places are stocked. But, okay, so where's the challenge at? At the moment, and look, what Girona is doing, or as I like to call them, the Ukrainian national team in disguise, is amazing. But let's keep it real. Barcelona's in a freaking mess. Atletico, yeah, they'll be there. But you know, Real Madrid set up to win you that league for a while. And Bayern, it's you'll win leagues by default. So I guess in Xabi's case, it could be, you know, the higher paycheck, but also could be what do you want a job? Do you want this next job in your career to be something safe like Bayern, where you're going to have, you know, a solid budget? You're always going to attract the best German players, and you're probably guaranteed at least a piece of silverware a season. Or something at Liverpool where you're under constraints. You have an oil rig and Pep Guardiola. You have an Arsenal team, which is still their window, I think, is still open.
Mhm.
Do you want to take on that challenge? So it's going to be interesting. He would be my first choice for obvious reasons. He knows the culture in terms of the kind of vibes, the mentality that Klopp had as a manager. He seems to have that at Leverkusen, and the system isn't identical, but it's still gegenpressing. In fact, it may be better gegenpressing because I can tell you right now, if Xabi Alonso gets this job, Trent Alexander-Arnold's never playing right back again. He's a midfielder.
You know, you talk about the challenge though. There's various ways to look at it. You're on a much shorter leash at Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. The expectation is that you win the Champions League. The expectation is that you win the league each and every year. At Real Madrid, if you don't win the Champions League, if you don't come home with a piece of silverware, that's seen as a failure. You
That's
talked about the
perfect.
burnout that you perceived that Klopp had from working with PSG, you know,
FSG.
FSG, I'm sorry. And you know, the idea of constantly having to try and chase down Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. We spoke last year about, you know, we had felt at a point last year that Klopp's pursuit of Pep Guardiola broke the team. We know that in between working with FSG and trying to chase down Pep Guardiola in Manchester City every year, it at least broke Klopp. You know, who's to say Xabi Alonso doesn't look at that and say, I don't really want to take this on.
And that's the other side of it. I think, you know, he'd be comfortable at any of those three jobs. And I
Mhm.
think it's going to be very interesting to see where he ultimately winds up.
And so, you know what would be the funny thing? Instead, we just saw that up here with the Washington Commanders. You have the hot coaching prospect that everybody wants, and then at the last minute, he decides that he's going to stay where he is.
Mhm. Mhm.
Remember,
That
it's not like
it's look, and it's not
Leverkusen
surprising,
don't have money.
right?
They've got Bayer money. They've got Bayer money. They've got Tylenol money.
Yeah, but it's not surprising because I think that as supporters, we tend to think that you can get any coach you want, and and look, I'm not going to equate Liverpool or any of these other open positions to the dumpster fire that's been the Washington Commanders for the past 30 years. But this is the main reason why I kept saying, you guys, all of my Arsenal friends who were like, fire the manager. I'm like, for who?
Yeah.
Who are you going to
Place
bring
with
in?
boom. Yeah.
Yeah, like that is the most short-sighted, idiotic thing you can do to think that. I mean, they were talking about going to get Allegri. Why would Allegri want to go to Arsenal, especially when they were talking about why would he want to go there? And it's do they really want to take this on? And the arrogance to believe that because it is a Premier League position that you can just go get anybody you want really shows a lack of perspective.
Well, and it's funny. I mean, obviously, all eyes are on Javi Alonso because the dots seem to make so much sense.
Mm.
And I know, you know, we're talking to Rob, Nagelsmann's name got brought up. Hansi Flick, who I'm not that hot on, but one of my students actually today was like, but remember 8-2 and 7-1. And I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, if there's one thing about Klopp that I am a little like, I think he could be too nice sometimes, like eviscerating an opposition and taking their soul and damage them psychologically, like those Flick Bayern and German teams, or Flick as, Ball Sniffer Man's assistant, his Igor. I kind of love that. So, I mean, okay, but the name that, and this is going to sound left field, and I'm doing homework now too, is Ruben Amorim, the manager at Sporting Lisbon. Don't be shocked if Xabi either stays put or winds up in Madrid or Munich. Don't be shocked if that's ultimately who we hire. I've heard a lot of interesting things, and I'll put my hands up. I don't watch it, the Portuguese league, but I'm going to start doing so because in a lot of ways he kind of fits that model that FSG sort of want in a manager, a guy who plays attacking football, can work within financial constraints. And, they brought in Klopp because they needed a bona fide winner. But if you think about their first managerial hiring, that was Brendan Rodgers. Now, that did not go well, but they've shown a willingness to take on guys who may not have the full resume, so to speak. So, I mean, that's another name to watch. In terms of guys in the Premier League, there's only two names, and I'm iffy on both. De Zerbi, simply stylistically, but I don't know whether this job's too big for him. And Thomas Frank, but man, would I love to see him go to a club like a Dortmund or something for 2 years before taking my club's job, if that makes any sense.
I think that some of the shine has come off of De Zerbi a little bit.
I remember watching him in Ukraine, so I've always been a little this guy has ideas, but I'm not certain he is who you think he is.
Everybody was really high on him last year after taking over for Graham Potter, but then you've got basically an 8-6 team right now who
just got spanked by Luton Town today.
Who just got spanked by Luton Town, who's tied on points with a Manchester United team that we're obviously saying is massively underperforming. I think the shine has come off of that a little bit. And I'm with you. I think that Thomas Frank needs to get some experience someplace else.
Yeah, I like the personality. I like the man management skills. I just need to see him do what he's done at Brentford at a bigger club.
I don't think that you want to bring a manager like that up to Liverpool. We saw with Graham Potter that sometimes the leap is just a little bit too big. And what people don't take into account for is when you're managing at a smaller club like a Brighton or a Brentford, it's easier. You're not managing guys who are making umpteen million more pounds a year than you are.
Exactly.
And, managing superstars and managing superstar egos is a talent. People talk about how, Pep's never won without having the best players in the world. Pep's like the soccer equivalent of Phil Jackson. Yeah, I know Phil Jackson never won without having the best player on the, but there is an art to doing what Phil Jackson did. There's an art to doing what Carlo Ancelotti does. Not everybody understands how to do that. That is why those guys are so successful in their positions and other people are not, right? It takes a level of understanding to be able to go into a locker room with the likes of these guys and who are at the top of their game or peak athletically, mentally, and say, I want you to do this, and I believe you can do this better.
Mm-hmm. And to manage a sea of egos like that.
And
That
you
is
tell a guy,
not
how do you
easy.
tell a guy, how do you tell Kevin De Bruyne that he's not playing that day?
Mhm.
You know, how do you challenge Virgil van Dijk, who's arguably been the best defender in the world over the course of the last, what, decade, and say, here's what I want you to do with your game. I think you can be better at this. You know, it takes a certain skill set to do that. Not everybody has that. And we've seen across all the clubs that we root for, guys who've come into jobs, maybe the organization's wrong, maybe the players are wrong, maybe they're not set up to be able to deal with it. And unlike I feel like you might have in American professional sports, I think when you're a manager of a soccer team, you're really left out there on your own to be able to do this. There is no support structure for the support structure. And so, and just because Chelsea might jumped in, I am going to use Graham Potter. I think that Graham Potter would have been a really good manager. I just think he left Brighton. He went, and I said at the time, I thought it was a bad move for him to make because he made that step up after a quick stint in Brighton. He got there, he got to Chelsea. It didn't work for him. And, you know, now he's in a position where he's hoping that Jim Ratcliffe likes him enough that he's going to give him Manchester United, but all of us would laugh at him if he did. I said to you, Steven Gerrard, who's gotten a couple of managerial jobs, went over to Celtic, and then came back to the Premier League and failed. There's no way that you feel like he could be successful at Liverpool.
No, he could come and coach the under 18s again, but I mean, when there were rumors that he was going to take the Poland job, I was like, no.
You know, Frank Lampard, you know, he did all the good stuff with Derby, then came up and Chelsea. I mean, at least he lasted a season and a half, but that didn't work out well. And so I just would not want to be a club looking for a manager this cycle because it just seems like with so many big clubs, one or two of them are going to be left without the guy that they want. And I have seen it firsthand that when you miss on a cycle and you miss the guy that you want, it can set you back 3 or 4 years.
The one positive in this scenario is the Barca job is going to be open, but I think
There's only
know who would want to take on that mess, nor do I know. So here's the thing, too, like, because Klopp's been mentioned as, you know, as soon as the Barca job got opened, it was like, well, maybe he'll go there. And it's like, he's worked under constraints, but I don't know whether if he's burnt out because of constraints, why would you go and manage more constraints? And talk about a club that has an almost cult-like devotion to strategy. If you're not
that was what I was going to say.
Guy and a tiki-taka guy, they don't want you. So, like, that job is whoever takes that job is going to be really weird because unless they want to revolutionize the whole thing, you're looking for a really specific, certain kind of. It's like when Dynamo Kiev was held hostage for years because in order to be their manager, you had to have Dynamo Sertsa, you had to have the Dynamo heart. Well, you could be a boob, but that could be, you know, the qualifications. I think that one, I don't want to say take it off the table because it's still Barca, it's still attractive. I don't know who I don't know what the fit's gonna be.
I don't know either. Stead's gonna hate me for saying this. I think Mikel Arteta
makes the most sense.
Is going to get a serious look at that.
Yeah,
he's managed under some financial constraints being at Arsenal, and so far he doesn't have the ability to just go out and buy anybody. He's a guy who's managed under Klopp, so he knows Klopp's philosophy on tiki-taka and total football. It's like when you have I should say, like, I feel very much like you, Matt, where you have all of these jobs and then you have Barca. And we kind of almost need to remove Barca
From the
because that
equation.
candidate pool is going to be so much different than anything else because you have to be able to play tick-tack football. You have, even their player pool is and that's where they've messed up, is that their player pool needs to be different. When it was Klopp, it was like they were only signing guys who had, I'm sorry, not Klopp. When it was
Pep.
Guardiola, they were only signing guys who had a background at La Masia, because that was the only way that you could come in and play this, was if you had already played there at some point before. And that was when they were really successful. Then they got away from it. And notice, like, most of the people who they have brought in their history who have no background at La Masia end up flaming out and being total failures.
Or they have to flame out and go someplace else, and then you figure out they're good.
Yeah.
Not good. Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. The death of Barcelona is the death of their academy.
The best equation that I can give you is managing Barcelona is like being a lawyer in Louisiana. The only way that you can be a lawyer in Louisiana is if you went to law school in Louisiana, because they're on the Napoleonic Code. No place else teaches that.
Yeah.
No place else teaches Barcelona except Barcelona. So unless you have some ties to Barcelona, you can't be at Barcelona in any capacity.
So, do we want to talk? Well, we could probably hold this off. What does Klopp do? We want to talk AFCON because
Yes, we need to talk AFCON. I know Mike's here.
We're short on time too, so I think if we do talk AFCON, we can just make it pretty brief so we can get Chelsea Mike in there.
Yeah,
this tournament is crazy.
Bad, and I have one very, very brief Eastern European thing, and then we'll cut it.
Well, AFCON, Senegal, I believe now have been cursed. They need a short. I never can figure this out. Do you need a short priest and a tall priest, or a fat priest and a skinny priest? But they need somebody to come in and do something, because the hoodoo that is on Senegal is just insane. I don't know how that continues to happen to them.
You know what though, Mike? It's not just Senegal. We were talking about the AFCON and its merits versus, let's say, the Copa de America last week. And one of my big issues with the Copa is, it is the most chalk, maybe other than because the Gold Cup, since it's expanded, you get surprises. It's the most chalk major continental tournament there is. And, the brand of football is not overwhelmingly exciting. Mike, all of the pre-tournament favorites are out before the quarterfinals. Morocco's gone. Senegal's gone. Egypt's gone. Like, this AFCON.
Nigeria, you got no excuses, Nigeria.
No, I was just about to say,
No
Nigeria, who before the tournament, I was like, they ain't got a shot. They're all of a sudden, the window has opened to them. And I'll keep it real, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. One of the most impressive players, definitely the most impressive Nigerian player in this whole tournament, is straight up Bassi, a center back who's masquerading as a defensive midfielder because you have no midfielders. That's madness.
Look, and the funny thing is, it still lines up where we could end up with Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire in the finals.
Yeah.
Which name-wise is a dream game. When you look at the name, when you look at the name of the nation,
name-wise, it's a dream game. But I mean, I think it does a disservice. I kind of want to see, at this point, I kind of want to see South Africa get there, because for them to do the double and get
that'd be cool.
The Rugby World Cup and the African Cup of Nations within about 6 months of each other, I think would be amazing for South African sports.
I, before the tournament started, had them as kind of a sneaky team. And remember, their manager is Hugo Bros. He took a Cameroon team in 2017 that had no business winning this tournament and somehow managed to get them over the hump. So it's going to be interesting. Of the teams that are remaining, I don't know. Geez, Cape Verde and Bebe has probably been the most consistent, and that
Yeah,
just
but we've
shows how
seen we saw with Senegal, consistency means nothing.
nothing. Yeah, it. I have stopped attempting to predict this AFCON.
I'm with you. All right, let's wrap up and welcome Chelsea Mike in.
Oh, one
Oh,
one
one
little
European
bit of
thing.
Eastern Europe business. Look, Eastern Europe is still in winter break mode. It is cold. There hasn't been much on the transfer market, in general. However, remember Croatia, that title race? Hajduk Split is getting reinforcements, but they're getting reinforcements with really old dudes. They have welcomed this week Ivan Perisic on loan. And I forgot he existed. And indeed, he's only about like 2 or 3 years younger than us. Nikola Kalinic signed a 4-month contract. So Hajduk Split is going for it, and they're going for it because they're bringing back their academy from like the late aughts. So more about that
Hey,
as this season unfolds.
we got a Kalinic and an Ivan Perisic and a Bebe mention all within about 2 sentences. Matt, you
Yeah.
win the day. All right, Chelsea Mike, give us the latest on. We were talking about it earlier. We talked to you last week about the goings on at Blackburn and just how much turmoil there was. They had a big weekend. They beat Hollywood FC.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really surprising. Wrexham at the end of the day still are a League Two team. They're while they might be the one of the top 10 famous teams in all of America, they're still a League Two team, and there it was not an upset. It was actually pretty dominating. And yeah,
That said, it was nice to see Blackburn remember that they're actually a legitimate side, and like what we're going to do right now is just stomp these interlopers out and remind them that we are a better team.
yeah, and that's what they did. Yeah, Blackburn, not a great run this year. They've been up and around the playoffs the last couple, but they are and ought to be a lot better than a team 2 divisions below them in the table. For a competition that's known for its magic, there really wasn't a lot of it this weekend.
We did get Maidstone dumping out Ipswich, and so we will have a non-league team in the round of 16.
Yeah, and Ipswich, we've talked about it. They're coming up, try to do the double up, but they're such gentlemen. They're such they thrive so much in the underdog role that they just had to they had to let the ultimate underdog of the tournament go through, and it was very kind of them to do so. Yeah, Maidstone United, playing out of the National League South, the 6th division. They're the lowest division team remaining in the tournament by 4 divisions. So it's a great it's a great story that's coming up, and for a team that's shown that they can compete with the top of the championship in a one-off match, their draw in the next round is either Wednesday or Coventry. Those are 2 teams of the championship who are not, they're not at the quality of Ipswich this year. So there's possibility there. There's potential. So we'll see what Maidstone United can do. They're really our only hope. I suppose there was really very little else that occurred that was very upset minded um over the whole weekend. Disappointing for Chelsea. They had a very winnable match against Villa at home that they sort of choked away, but all the big sides are that were remaining are moving on. Which this sad in a way. You like to see more League 1 and 2 teams in
Mhm.
there, and they're just not this time. So you're not going to get a
You've
lot
got-
of magic this year.
If I'm remembering the draw, you've got uh Liverpool and City at the top end. And I think Newcastle's still in the draw. But there's a significant number of big time Premier League teams that we would normally think that would still be in it that aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You get
suppose
stuck playing
that's
Liverpool so early. Someone's got to go out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same thing, like if you've got a draw with Spurs and Man City, one of them's got to leave.
Mhm.
Manchester United are a big team, but it's not like they're near the top of the Premier League. And they almost lost. And we can have Mike, you and I can do a whole entire show on that game against Newport. But I think that you've got a good selection of lower league teams in the round of 16. I do think by the time you get to the to the quarterfinals, it's going to be a lot of chalk Premier League teams, but there's even going to be a golf in the quality. Unless something happens and Liverpool is drawn against Man City, like that's your final.
Yeah, well, that's the magic of the draw of the FA Cup. I suppose that's the biggest drama to see. Who opens where the draw opens the competition for someone to go further than you would think that they should. Like you do have Wednesday or Coventry versus Maidstone.
One of them is going to be in the quarterfinal. One of those three teams is going to be in the quarterfinal.
Right. Bournemouth, Leicester. Great possibility for Leicester. Leicester are playing well above everyone else in the championship this year.
Yeah, they kill them.
Watford or Southampton, could they beat Liverpool? Is there a big thing? Chelsea or Villa are going to play a championship side. So they're, the championships are actually facing some pretty poor draws already in the round 5 draw. So, we want to see it. We want to see that magic of the FA Cup, but this year, like I said, the magic slightly subdued.
All right, so we're off of a FA Cup weekend and into the back into league play. Give us some storylines from the lower leagues that we need to be paying attention to.
Well, I was so focused on the FA Cup this weekend that I didn't really look into this weekend's matchups. It's cup time, my friend. It's cup time. I also I did want to. I'm sad Professor Matt ran away. Oh,
No, he's
are
still
you
there.
back?
I'm here.
Hey, Professor Matt, tomorrow, Chelsea Liverpool 0-0.
My brain tells me that should be the result. My heart
Yes.
says Klopp is leaving. We have to break this juju somehow, some way. But yeah, God. You realize 6 out of the last 7 times we've met have been draws.
No, it's each of the last 7 times.
Is it the last 7?
All
Okay.
7 times in a row, including 2 cup finals where we ended up losing to you on penalty kicks. 7 matches in a row, Chelsea Liverpool have been a draw.
My brain tells me a draw, but we'll see.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, Chelsea had no business drawing with Liverpool earlier in the season. And Liverpool doesn't give off that we're giving up points this year. So yes, everything in logic is telling you it's probably going to be Liverpool. But there's the magic of the Chelsea Liverpool tie
Mhm.
is that it always ends in a draw.
Yeah, I may watch Spurs Brentford instead. Like at least there might be a goal.
Your baby goals scored, yeah.
This week's slate of midweek games. Wait until Thursday. Manchester United away at Wolverhampton. I'm thinking 3-1 Wolves.
It's you know what? That may be the chalk line right there. That's entirely possible. I don't think anyone would be surprised by that, especially after the week Manchester's had. It's I don't know. I don't
All
know
right.
what you can say about it.
Yeah, we said enough already.
step
You
up.
said enough at the start of the show. That's why I was like, I'm just gonna stop. I'm just gonna
All right.
stop.
You know what? It's been fun. Let's put this one to bed.
Yeah, I'm falling asleep. I have for some reason, man, since I moved to Georgia, my children have decided to get sick every other week, so sleep has been quite hard to come by.
So we did all right this week. Yeah, so wait, I'm supposed to say this in a certain order. Thanks to Celtic Cam for giving us the latest happenings from the land of enchantment. Hope he's feeling better. Although, based on our conversation about Scotch, he's got the right medicine. Good to see Byron Robb again. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in the Bundesliga. Give his opinions on the future of Leverkusen and Stuttgart and Xavi Alonso. Matt, really nice to talk. Professor Matt, really nice to talk to you about Jurgen Klopp. We got a little bit of AFCON in there, but really like what's going on with Klopp and his future. Mikey, we love the cup, and we'll see what happens as we go back into league. So, for the cast of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, I'm Mike. We did all right this week, and we'll try and do better next week.